It's now time for Party Chat Sports.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
Welcome back, everybody, to Party Chat Sports. I'm Caleb Gill. We've got Drew Nelson and Cam Braun here. Dylan Schroeder, fraudulent, not here. But I am going to get something out of the way immediately off the riff. Week 6, something happened that has never happened here at Party Chat Sports during Week 6. So we do pick'ems every week, right? This is the first week that not just one, but 2 members during the pick'ems had a perfect week. Dylan and I both going 14-0 in pick'ems this week. It was an easy week, clearly, to pick. I'm not saying that we're great. I'm not, but I'm going to pat myself on the back there. Maybe I should have bought a lottery ticket this weekend. Drew, 1 game off. He went 13-1 this week. Cam, I don't remember. You went...
No idea.
Not good.
You had 10 wins this week, so you went 10-4 this week in the pick'ems. But Dylan and I both going undefeated in pick'ems this week. Huge accomplishment for us. Had to mention it. Now let's get into those Week 6 games. It started off with Thursday Night Football. We're gonna do things similar to what we usually do. We'll go through the games. There's some games that we'll touch on a little bit more, and other games that we're hopefully just going to skim right past. But again, that first game of the week, Thursday Night Football, the San Francisco 49ers put a little bit of a beatdown on the Seattle Seahawks. 49ers were 2-3 heading into this game. They needed the win to help make sure that all the wheels aren't necessarily falling off the wagon quite yet. Seahawks sitting atop that division. Now a good division win for the 49ers, for Brock Purdy, and the San Francisco 49ers.
I do think that they solidified themselves as being a legitimately good team. So
I don't think there's ever been a doubt about that.
I mean, once the Vikings beat them, you guys were all over that, but
not me.
You said no, and I quote, we don't know if a team is good within the first 4 weeks.
I did say that.
Yes. Anyways, go on.
I'm man enough to admit it. I did say that. But the 49ers have everybody, even when the 49ers were losing, it's like, all right, people are still scared of the Niners.
Okay, so say the Vikings beat a good team. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking for.
So the 49ers improved to 3-3. The Seahawks fall to 3-3. So actually the 49ers do take that division lead with that win. I thought Purdy looked good, especially bouncing back from that Arizona game where he threw that interception. Yes, he did have Debo catch and run, but still, he's passing the ball around. The Seahawks, they looked good. This was a great uniform game, by the way, as well. I thought the uniforms looked great. Looked beautiful out there. Seahawks didn't quite play to that, look good, feel good.
Mostly DK's fault, to be honest.
It is.
DK's shoes were too big, so he didn't get that touchdown in the back of the end zone. And then there was kind of a deep ball. It was kind of like a 50-50 ball, but DK is built to win those a little bit more than 50-50. He did a bad job fighting for it. That goes incomplete. And I was it wasn't quite in the end zone. It was at the 5-yard line. And then I think later in the game, at some point in the game, he is running kind of like a drag or an in of some kind. But then he starts turning upfield a little bit, and Geno Smith fires. It looks like a terrible interception, but it's because DK's not going where he's supposed to be going. So really, it was just kind of a DK disaster class for the Seahawks, especially in a game where they were, like we said, the 49ers are the 49ers. They're pretty good. I don't know if you've noticed a couple Super Bowl appearances in the last few years, but you need to be on top of your game anytime you're playing against a team like that, and they were not. And a lot of it was at the hands of DK, unfortunately. So it made Geno Smith look pretty bad. I don't think he had a great game, especially that interception. When I watched it, I was like, "Oh my god, it's terrible."
Yeah.
But it was.
I mean, Geno
seemingly maybe it was Geno's fault. Maybe DK was going the right way, but it didn't seem like that's where Geno expected him to be.
Geno is what he is. He's a veteran, a journeyman backup. There's a reason he's never been a franchise quarterback, but he's still a capable quarterback. And those guys do tend to make mistakes every so often. I mean, that's just the nature of that position and where he's at in his career. So you'll have that. The other thing, too, on the 49ers side, they just continue to churn out these no-name running backs. Isaac Guerrero? No, I apologize if I said that name wrong. 10 carries, 99 yards.
My coworker's got him on his dynasty team. So
That's BS, man. That is BS.
He knew something we didn't.
And Mason, when he was in there, before he got hurt, 9 carries, 73 yards. The 49ers, one thing the Shanahans have always been able to do, Mike and Kyle, is draw up a good run game. Always finding ways to get their running backs the ball in space and finding a scheme that is running back friendly. Like Christian McCaffrey, the joke around here has been that he's a system running back. He's not. He just makes a already really good system better. Because look, they had a bunch, even before CMC got there, there were no-name running backs. Elijah Mitchell, who's heard of him since? Raheem Mostert.
Is he still there?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think he is.
Raheem Mostert, before he ended up with the Dolphins, he bounced around a little bit. He had a good couple games, about a season or so there with the Niners. Like, that's just who they are. They continue to churn out these running backs, and it's not fair. Really not fair. Is there anything else that we need to say about this 49ers-Seahawks game?
I do not believe so.
All right, let's head across the pond. The Jacksonville Jaguars, who are kind of London's team at this point with how often they play there, they stink. The Chicago Bears, best game of Caleb Williams' career so far. He had I think he had all 5 touchdowns in this game. I think he was responsible for, no, he wasn't. He had 4. There was one that was dropped. Or Swift didn't cross, DJ Moore didn't cross the goal line. And then Swift got the tutty. Best game of Caleb Williams' career so far. He looked like a pro. He looked like the first overall pick. But then you also had the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are right there with the Panthers in terms of one of the worst teams in the league right now. Them, the Browns, some things just never change. I don't think. So the Jaguars are there again this upcoming week. They play the Patriots. I think it'd be so funny if the Patriots won that game and then Doug Peterson gets fired in London and has to fly economy or Spirit on the way home. Like, sorry, you're not coming back with us. I'm trying to get on the plane. No. I'm going to stop you right there. Keep your ass in London. Figure it out. Sayonara, sucker. Like, it was bad. At halftime, it was even like, does he even make it past this game? And I wonder if one of the reasons he's still there is because they had the back-to-back London games. Like, that was already going to be tough enough as it is. Like, if that's why they didn't make the change yet. But it feels inevitable that Doug Peterson is not long for that job. And then,
No, he's probably gone.
And then Matt Eberflus.
Probably he's not gone already.
Right. I thought for sure he was going to be the first head coach fired. the way that Jaguars started, I thought for sure they were going to be that first. He was going to be the first one gone. Matt Eberflus is saving his job, on the other hand. 4 wins. Granted, a couple of those wins have come against like the Panthers, the Jaguars now, but
all
still.
of the teams they've beaten have 1 win so far.
Right.
They're all 1-4.
It's kind of
1-5.
I sent
Kinda
that in the chat earlier. Strength of schedule. Vikings 5. Everybody else is in the 20s.
I did see that. It's like, what was it? The Cardinals a couple of years ago. The Eagles, where all their wins were against losing teams. That's probably, if the Bears make the playoffs, that's where they're at. They're good enough to beat the bad teams. And right now, with a rookie quarterback, that's not a bad thing to ask for. That's not a bad situation. If you're good enough to beat those bad teams, you clearly have the talent. DeAndre Swift gets benched a couple weeks ago, but since he's gotten benched, he's played better. That alleged bench for Rashawn Johnson. Ever since that announcement came out, I feel like we've seen a different DeAndre Swift this year.
Free my man Rashawn Johnson. Free my man Khalil Herbert as well. Free them both. But yeah, the Bears looked pretty good again against the team that is struggling mightily. Trevor Lawrence, man, what happened? I think we know what happened. I predicted the future. It's not all his fault. It's not all his fault. I think I've been clear that it's not just his fault. There's a lot of reasons why the Jags are bad. I think the coach is bad, Doug Peterson. It's time for him to be done. It's time for, I don't know why they hired, what's his name, Falke or whatever the GM's name is.
Trent Falke?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's terrible.
He's
Always
a bum. Their receivers are dropping passes again, specifically dropping touchdowns, which is kind of what happened last year a lot and why they were not very good last year.
That's why you moved off Calvin Ridley.
They're just not a good team, and either that could be why Trevor Lawrence never got to kind of progress as people thought he was going to. The team is not supporting him enough for him to actually make that step. But unfortunately for him, it's going to be hard after this many years in the league, and he's got a big contract now, so he's going to be on the Jags for a long time. So it's just not a good situation. I don't really see anything turning around for him. Like, he's not going to take that next step. The Jags have so far been incapable of building a good roster around him. And even if they do, I still don't, it's kind of too late. It feels like he might not even take another step if he was given the chance. It could be too late. Just bad habits built up over time. I could be wrong, but still, it's a mess down there. And they just gave him $55 million or whatever it was. Maybe it was like 54.5 or something like that.
Deshaun Watson on a budget, if you will.
He's infinitely better than Deshaun Watson, but still, either way, the contract. Yes. Than today's Deshaun Watson. Yes.
In 2024, yes.
Deshaun Watson is one of the worst quarterbacks statistically that NFL has ever seen.
You guys see, we'll get to the Browns
for this season.
But the Browns' overall offense is comparable to the 2 seasons that the Browns won one combined game. That's how bad Deshaun Watson and just that team in general are. With the Jaguars, Lawrence is going to make it hard for an attractive candidate to take that job, I think, though. Because Doug Peterson's a dead man walking. Trent Baalke, you've got to assume is a dead man walking. So then the pitch to a guy is you get to come in and fix Trevor Lawrence, but you also come in knowing that you're handcuffed to Trevor Lawrence. So unless you really believe in Trevor Lawrence and think that you can make it work, which, I mean, there's some guys that do feel that way. A lot of teams, a lot of coaches are arrogant. They think, there was a reason he was the number 1 overall pick. I'm the guy that can get that out of him. So you might have a coach like that. But the smart coaches, the good candidates, are probably going to look at that Jaguars job and say, yeah, Lawrence locked in for the next 5 years. I see what's going on in Cleveland. Do I really want to be a part of something like that? It's just going to make it a lot harder for them to find the right candidate. Unless there is a guy out there. Unless there is a Mike McDaniel who can get the best out of Tua type coach. I mean, that's probably what you're leaning on is that caliber. And even that is... That's probably the best.
The best candidates don't want to go to Jacksonville.
Ben Johnson's not going to want to go there. Bill Belichick's not going to want to go there.
Flores will not go there.
Flores will not want to go there. Slowick. And that's the other thing, too. If you're the Jaguars, you're probably going to hire an offensive guy with the idea that they're there to fix Lawrence. So that takes out Flores anyways. That takes out the defensive candidate.
Might get a second tier, like Clint Kubiak, Saints.
Yep.
Something, I don't know.
Maybe. But, again, we spent a lot of time on the Jaguars. The Bears. That was, again, the best game Caleb Williams has played so far. Overseas. 35 points. Him being responsible for 4 touchdowns. Like, if you're a Bears fan, actually, one of the Bears fans I know, talked to, he came away from that game encouraged. And that's what you want to see when you have a rookie quarterback, is the encouraging moments. Now, as a guy that has watched 2 rookie quarterbacks himself, you can drink the Kool-Aid a little too hard and just hang on or latch on to every positive thing, but this does feel a little different. It does feel, because what we saw in college seemed to translate on Sunday, which is what you want to see. Speaking of Clint Kubiak, they had a rookie quarterback starting for them as well, Spencer Rattler, and it started off fine. Like, it was kind of back and forth with the Buccaneers. It looked like the Saints might be able to pull it off at one point, but the Buccaneers are a wagon. They are a beast right now. I don't know if anybody in the NFC South is going to beat them and take the division away from them. The Falcons are the best bet.
Falcons.
I don't think it's Falcons.
And
I was going to be the Bucs until the Falcons beat them.
And the Falcons did beat them. But you've got to do it again. You've got to do it in Tampa Bay. And the way that the Buccaneers are playing, 51, they put up a 50 burger. And I know it's against the Saints, but it's the NFL. And that's not, I don't think, the Buccaneers have been putting up points this year. 51, 36, 33, 37. They only put up 7 against the Broncos and 20 against the Lions, but most of their games this year, they're putting up 30 or more. That's wild. Which makes me excited for Monday Night Football.
Saints scored 27 points, and all of them were in the second quarter.
Holy crap, that is right.
Crazy.
That's a wild second quarter. Mayfield.
I think eventually they started getting into some turnover issues.
Yeah.
I mean, even Baker started off with some turnover issues, and it kind of looked like it was going to get out of hand too quickly, but
it did.
Obviously, the Saints they're kind of on a downturn already in the last couple games. They have a rookie quarterback, obviously. Chris Olave gets injured early.
That was bad.
Yeah, just wasn't a good scenario for him. The Bucs stopped messing around and got busy, and 51-27 is how it ends. But yeah, I think the Saints, they started off hot. That's obviously gone. They played 2 bad teams to start the season.
Yep.
And now they're going to finish 3rd in the division. So you can't lose to the Falcons and then the Bucs. Is it back-to-back weeks? So they played the Saints or the Falcons last week.
No, they played the Chiefs.
That's 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago they played the Falcons.
Yeah, that's right. Either way, if they were going to still be competitive, they had to win one of those games, in my opinion. So,
yeah, it's starting to.
Saints Rattler didn't look too bad for a minute. But
he had his moments, but again, he looked like a rookie quarterback by the end of it. Cam, you got anything?
he's gone.
Oh, crap, he is. All right. Moving on. Ravens,
Nothing to say, I
Commanders.
guess.
Ravens, Commanders. This was a game that Cam actually wanted to talk about.
He did.
I think he's a big fan of Jaden Daniels so far, which, I mean, he's been impressive. He is, through 6 weeks, I think Jaden Daniels is the Offensive Rookie of the Year leader in the clubhouse, or at least he should be. The way that they've got that Commanders offense rolling, yes, they lost ultimately to the Ravens, but it's the Ravens. You put up 23 points. It's not like a 30 or anything like that, but still, I don't think that's a bad game from a rookie. And that's something that context is needed for some of these. Like, you look 30-23, Ravens, they handled the Commanders' offense for the most part, and I still thought Jaden looked good throwing the ball, which was something I wasn't sure if we would see at the next level. Him throwing the ball has been... You watched him at Arizona State. I was impressed with him at LSU. I thought he was a, kind of a sham Heisman winner.
I thought so too.
He's looking good, man.
He's playing good. Can't deny that.
No.
I know Dylan. Dylan said after the game that, well, maybe the Commanders aren't real. Like, it was fake. More realistic scenario is that the Ravens are just good. I know Dylan probably has a hard time admitting that, but I think the Ravens are probably the best team in the league right now. They started off slow, but since then they've been pretty good, if not dominant. Obviously, this game ended close, but it didn't necessarily feel that close as it was going on. But unfortunately, Lamar Jackson's got to be top 2 in MVP race right now. I don't know if
Could you imagine Lamar Jackson wins a 3rd MVP?
Listen, if he wins 3 MVPs and still can't make like a Super Bowl or whatever, he's got 2 playoff wins right now. All right. There's another guy that we'll talk about later that has a similar record, and he gets grilled every second of every day for it. But anyways, that's besides the point.
I can't wait for that.
A 3rd MVP record and that playoff record, that's bad. That's a conversation to have. So
that's an interesting one.
For now, they're playing good. They're playing really well. Like you already mentioned about before, Jaden Daniels is playing really well. Caleb Williams has more passing touchdowns than Jaden Daniels, which kind of feels weird. It felt like Jaden Daniels was kind of slinging the ball around, but he's obviously got more rushing touchdowns. But some of the passes to Terry McLaurin, I mean, Scary Terry finally has a quarterback.
It feels nice.
That's been good to see.
It feels nice for him.
They look good. They don't have any defense. So they're not like legit contenders yet. But
it's kind of,
this is way farther ahead of schedule than definitely by what I expected, and I guarantee they're farther ahead than what the Commanders expected.
Right.
I know they drafted them 2nd overall or whatever it was, but
I don't think anybody expected this so far. They are.
Yeah, you don't expect to take that kind of leap.
It seemed like heading into this season that they were going to be fighting for 3rd place with the Giants in the NFC East, and now, I mean, I already can't take the Cowboys to win the division because of the prophecy. Dude, the Commander, is there a world where the Commanders win the NFC East with a rookie quarterback? I think we're seeing a possibility with how
easily,
and that's not part of that is just because of how the Eagles and Cowboys are playing. The context is needed there. Those 2 teams are not playing good enough to win the division. The Commanders are playing better than those 2, so we'll see how things finish out down the stretch for them. But I didn't even consider them a possibility to win the division. I just thought it was going to be Eagles because, again, prophecy, and it had to be one of those 2 teams. And it seems early on that I was wrong there. The other thing I was wrong about, I had the Ravens as one of the most overrated teams heading into this year. I thought they were overrated. I thought Derrick Henry was going to lose a step. It looks like he gained a step compared to last year. He's got another 100-yard rushing game. Actually, both him and Zay Flowers both finished with the same amount of yards. Henry had 132 yards on the ground. Zay Flowers had 132 yards receiving. Good games on the offense from those two, but this is when you sign Derrick Henry, this is exactly what you're hoping to get, especially with a Lamar Jackson at quarterback. You're hoping that you have a lethal running game and a threat on the ground. You can just give it to Derrick Henry, and he's just going to blow right past you. He looks, now this is through 6 games. We'll see how the wear and tear of a season impacts him towards the end of the year, because 24 carries now, those miles might add up, and that's one thing that I'm going to start getting a little worried about with Henry is how many miles they put on him here in the early part of the season. But if he can keep this up come playoff time, the Ravens might be a tough out. I mean, the Ravens are always a tough out to begin with. This probably makes them...
Are they?
I'd say... I mean, they get beat in the playoffs a lot, but I'm not saying it's an easy win. Like, you still have to fear them a little bit. This actually makes... If Henry continues to play like this, they're going to be a tough out.
The miles haven't added up on him yet. He's, what is he now, 28, 29?
I think he's 30, isn't he?
30?
And I thought the miles were adding up on him last year. He looked slow. He looked run down. He's 30. He'll be 31 in January.
Wow. Yeah, they haven't quite added up yet. I mean, he's still dominant. One of the best running backs in the league, if not the best right now. So, yeah, they look good. I just can't imagine not forking up the money to bring him in.
Yeah.
You know,
but
who would say no to that?
Yeah.
Like, why would you not bring in Derrick Henry?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Eagles and Saquon. Like, why wouldn't you try adding Saquon? Why wouldn't you try getting one of the best offensive players in the league? You can. Packers, Cardinals, this is the next game. Packers win 34-13. What's Arizona radio saying after that one?
What were they talking about today on the drive home? Mostly how Kyler's average. He's an average quarterback. He has potential to be like a top 10 quarterback, but he can't stay there consistently. And that's the biggest issue. What else? Their strength of schedule for the remaining season is technically easy. They still got to play the Seahawks twice. They got to play the 49ers one more time. They got to play the Rams one more time, which on paper is an easy game depending on what they're looking like health-wise at the time and if they're even playing for anything. What else? They're just... One, I would say they probably got a little bit too optimistic with the Rams win, which is, I mean, it's hard to blame them. You beat a team 40-something to 6 or whatever the heck it was. Like, that leaves you feeling good. They got ahead of themselves a little bit too much. The expectations, I think, were to try and get close to competing for a playoff spot. That was like the top goal, which is probably not realistic. I don't know that it was ever realistic. It was possible, especially after that Rams win. It's like, okay, maybe that is possible, but now it's kind of leveled out.
Yeah.
And all they really want to see is where, where's Kyler going to take them?
Yep.
Are they at least seeing, for Jonathan Gannon's sake, are they seeing improvement from last year? Because if you come out and kind of get the same record or a similar record, unfortunately, that's going to come back to the coach, whether it's his fault or not. I don't think the roster's ready for anything. The roster's not ready to make the playoffs, first of all, in my opinion. So I think unfairly, the record, if they don't do better than last year, which I think they still will. But anyways, if they don't do better, that's going to reflect on Jonathan Gannon, who I think is done a decent job so far. I don't think it's time to give up on him yet.
With what he has, I think they've done fine.
But they're missing pieces. They've obviously Marv got injured. I think he's still in concussion protocol, but they play on Monday night, so that might be okay. They've had a lot of offensive line issues. Their defense has been bad. It was bad, and they're not playing well. I think their rookie I can't remember what they were saying about him. They drafted a rookie corner in the second round, I think. He was out of Rutgers, I believe. Anyways, he either played, I forget what they were saying, like I mentioned before, but he either played poorly or maybe he even got injured during this game. Anyways, just their second and third pick in the draft. And when you're a bad team like this, you kind of need the picks to contribute, especially when you have that many high picks. But anyways, their second pick, I don't think he's played a single snap yet due to injury. Darius Robinson, I think his name is. He's a defensive lineman. And then the corner I was talking about out of Rutgers, I think they got in the second round, hasn't played great. Hasn't played what you're hoping for with a relatively high pick because it was early second round. So they're just kind of circling the drain, I guess. You see flashes of Kyler, like Kyler against the Niners played pretty well. Kyler against the Rams played well. And then you see games like against the Packers and
even against the Bills before they folded. Like he started off strong.
That was a good game as well, yeah. So it's like it flashes like, yes, we could be like competing for a playoff spot. And then the next week it's like this team is one of the worst teams in the league. And then the next week they go and they play an actual contender and they give them, either a good game like against the Bills or they win like against the 49ers. And so it's very mixed, and I can understand why local radio is a little confused on what to talk about. But I don't think they're not ready to compete yet. And unfortunately, they're going to be too good to not get a top draft pick, but not good enough to do anything. So they're getting in a purgatory spot.
Yep. They definitely are. Here's their remaining schedule. They've got the Chargers Monday night they host. I think Chargers win. I wouldn't be shocked if the Cardinals do, though. They go to Miami to take on the Dolphins. As of now, I would take the Cardinals. Bears-Cardinals. Right now, I would probably lean Bears. But again, it's like the Chargers. I could see it. They host the Jets. We'll see how the Jets are at that point. They go to Seattle. They go to Minnesota. They host Seattle. They host New England. They're in Carolina. Then they play the Rams in LA. And then they host the Niners last week. I think you're right. They're going to win too many games there to where you're not picking top 5 again.
I think they probably win the Patriots.
I'd say the
Panthers. They probably win against the Niners because the Niners, I would imagine, have some sort of good playoff spot locked up, potentially.
They probably split with the Seahawks, so 4.
Probably.
I could see them stealing.
The Bears and the Chargers are both winnable games. I don't know if I would pick them to win either of them necessarily, but they could easily win both.
Did you say the Dolphins?
Dolphins without Tua.
Yep.
I think.
So we've got 49ers last week because we think they'll rest starters. Panthers, Patriots. I think they split with the Seahawks. They beat the Dolphins without Tua. So that's 5. That's not counting. They probably steal at least one of the Chargers, Jets, Bears. They probably get at least one win out of those 3. So you're looking at probably about...
They probably beat the Rams again, too.
So 7, 8 more wins?
What do they have now, 2?
I think
that would be a lot, actually.
That's a lot.
That might be close to a playoff team, but not. I don't think not quite enough.
Yep. So if it goes how we think it's going to go, they could be 9-8, 10-7. For the
See,
on the Packers side, Jordan Love was slinging it around. 4 tutties for him. I really got nothing else to say.
I think a lot of what Jordan Love showed was he's a little dangerous.
He's got.
People always say he bounces between Favre and
I was just
Rodgers.
about to say, like I've seen, like there's times where it's like, all right,
There
I'm
was
going to
some-
turn on the Favre switch and I'm going to turn on the Rodgers switch.
Yeah, there was some Favre aspects to this game with some of the throws he made against a good defense. Probably not going to happen. But luckily, they were not playing a good defense, and it worked out. So,
Yep.
we'll see what happens with him, but he's got to figure it out. Like we saw it in the 49ers playoff game. They had a chance to go and win, and he cross-body throws a pick for no reason. Like, he's got to find out or maybe the team's got to find out, like, why he's pressing so hard in those moments and just, like, dude, just relax, take what's there, don't force it. Because, against the Cardinals at home, against a bad defense, you can get away with it. When you're going, to the 49ers again or whoever it may be, that's not going to cut it. That's an interception, that's a turnover, it's a bad play, it's whatever.
Yeah.
So he's still got some room to grow. This is still only his second year starting, so he's still basically a young quarterback. But obviously, the good is good as well. So
I don't think there's much left to say there. There shouldn't be much to say in this game. Colts, Titans, Joe Flacco was good enough to beat Will Levis is kind of my takeaway, which doesn't say a lot. Colts winning 2017. Will Levis is just bad, and the Titans are just not good. They're definitely not good enough to overcome it. Tony Pollard, I'm sure you would love to have him right now. 93 yards on 17 carries and a touchdown for him. But yeah, I just thought Flacco was good as a veteran quarterback, was good enough to beat Will Levis, and we'll see Anthony Richardson again next week. Texans, Patriots. Welcome to the NFL, Drake May. 21 points in his debut, but the Texans.
wasn't close.
It was not close at all. 41-21 was the final with CJ Stroud and the Texans getting the win in New England. But apparently Drake May did enough for 2 AFC East teams to trade for a wide receiver this week. Today, actually.
I saw that. That was funny.
Joe Mixon, he's back in the lineup. I don't remember. I think this was his first game back. He might have been back last week after getting hurt.
It was.
Stephon Diggs, that connection with CJ Stroud looks good right now. Especially with the injury there in Houston. They needed it. They needed, after the Nico Collins injury, somebody had to fill that void. Stephon Diggs right there.
I should have played Tank Dell over George Pickens. I don't know why I keep letting Dylan talk me into playing the Steelers players, but
I mean, maybe the way he's going to talk you into George Pickens this week is it might be a little bit different with a different quarterback. It maybe
Russell Wilson.
Maybe Russ will get him the ball. That's how he's going to get you this week.
Probably.
But Drake May in his debut, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It was fine for a debut. It's just the Patriots are just bad. They're bad. The offensive line is not good. This is why I thought Drake May should have sat the entire season to begin with. You don't want to risk ruining him. But
yeah,
the second you
if you determined that the team was too bad for Brissett, and you could see that the team was too bad for Brissett,
it's definitely
probably not a good idea to throw in your rookie quarterback in the same situation.
Right.
Even if he is head and shoulders better than Brissett, which maybe he is at this point in time, maybe he's not. You're not doing anything this season.
Nope.
Getting him some reps, albeit poor quality reps, because he's got to worry about his offensive line the whole time. The receivers aren't that great. I know they just drafted Polk. And Booty actually had that good long touchdown catch against Stingley, which was actually pretty impressive. But still, it's not like they're not good. They're not quality reps. They're not good reps. Obviously, live reps are, you can consider them good, I guess. But the problem is you can learn bad habits.
Yep.
And
if I'm
because he thinks he's always under pressure and he's forcing stuff, and even when the line does eventually get better, things like that. So.
I mean, I started seeing a lot of that with Zach Wilson, where he just wasn't trusting because he was so used to seeing the pressure in his face immediately. It created bad habits, or it might have inflated bad habits that were already there. That could happen with Drake May. And again, like a lot of times coaches will do that or do this. They'll make the in-season switch to a rookie quarterback if they feel like their job's on the line, but it's a first-year head coach. This was a guy that Robert Kraft was kind of like, I don't want to say grooming to be the next head coach after Belichick, but kind of sounded like he was. You have to believe there's some wiggle room or that it's not a one-and-done type deal for Mayo. So why are you making the switch now? It felt like a panic. Like they felt like they needed to do something, but it might ultimately...
I think the Patriots are probably too prideful to think that they're bad.
That's the other, yeah.
But in reality, I think it would have been better to just be honest and protect your quarterback's development.
Well, this is why...
Instead of trying to either speed it up or...
The entire draft process,
admit that you're bad.
You wanted them to take Marv because they needed guys before they could get a quarterback. And they obviously didn't follow what you were saying they should do, and they made their bed. Now they got to sleep in it. Speaking of sleeping in beds, maybe not, more like massage tables, the Cleveland Browns lost again to the Philadelphia Eagles, 20-16. Nick Sirianni, a bum, certified bum at this point. I've been the biggest Eagles supporter in this group. And then I watched that Eagles game. It was so annoying, man. It was so annoying watching that game. Quinyon Mitchell almost had an interception, but his teammate took it or hit him. So he obviously didn't. It's just
AJ Gardner-Johnson's a straight bum.
He is. Fraud. Get him out of there. Took that interception away from my boy. But Deshaun Watson. Apparently those massages were the difference between him being good and bad. Because since he's allegedly no longer been receiving them, he's been terrible. Arguably one of the worst quarterbacks we've seen in a long time. Statistically, like I mentioned
earlier.
I
mean, a lot of people are finding stats about certain. Obviously, those are very cherry-picked stats.
Right. You're searching for bad stats to compare and make the comparison.
But a starting quarterback in today's league should not be anywhere near the bottom of NFL history. So a lot of these stats, it's Deshaun Watson's 560th out of 570 total quarterbacks that have ever that fall into the stat, which is probably in NFL history, this specific stat. You should not be towards the bottom of the list. I mean, if you think about the beginning of the sport, there's not a lot of, quarterbacks aren't exactly leading the team because there's not a lot of passing.
No.
A lot of it was, on the shoulders of the running backs and things like that. And even if it was passing, it was, short stuff.
Well, you look at
and your receivers getting obliterated, his head's getting taken off because the rules were different back then.
Look at everybody
no
that
modern
has
quarterback
yards.
should be in that realm.
Look at all the passing yards and passing touchdowns records in the NFL. Most of them, if not all of them, have come since post 2000. Most of them have all happened in our lifetime, or the quarterbacks played in our lifetime.
And this is the same team that made the playoffs last year. They have offensive line injuries. They had offensive line injuries when they made the playoffs. That's why Stefanski was getting... Did he win Coach of the Year, or was he up for it?
I think he's won it twice, I believe.
He might have won... I think he won last year.
I think he might have.
But because of the problems that they had with injuries, they had pretty much a whole backup offensive line playing. Yep. They didn't have Jerry Jeudy at the time, at least not the whole season. Obviously, Nick Chubb got injured early, so they didn't really have him. So, this is pretty much the same team, just a different quarterback.
Yep.
And you go from a playoff team, albeit they didn't win, their playoff game, but still made it. One of the best teams in the AFC to one of, if not the worst team in the league.
And the main difference is that scumbag. That quarterback.
The alleged scumbag.
Alleged scumbag. This could not have happened to a worse person. I felt bad for the Browns. Like, the Browns I sympathize. I've always sympathized with the Browns and the Lions. Being a Jets fan in the Toledo area where we grew up, right on that Ohio-Michigan border, I sympathize with a lot of them because I understood that what having a terrible team feels like. Then they made that trade for Deshaun Watson, and I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. You've got it coming. And this is exactly what they've had coming for them. Man, and I feel bad for Kevin Stefanski. I do. I feel bad for him because every time he's asked about...
I feel bad for all the players.
I feel bad for the players.
Stefanski.
I feel bad.
Because they're going out there and they're risking, their bodily safety and all this kind of stuff, just kind of wasting their time. Like, they're not competing for anything. They're not going to be competing for anything. They're, Stefanski.
They are 1-5.
Stefanski's like a couple wins away from admitting that the owners are making him keep Deshaun in. Like, I feel like he's getting close to just being like, you know what, guys? This is an organizational decision.
I'm expecting
not mine.
Somebody's going to ask him at some point. Maybe it's already happened. Like, who decides the starting quarterback? Like, is that a you decision? Is that like who? He's going to say it's a decision that's made by multiple people. He's going to say something along those lines.
Ownership.
Yep. They made their bed. They did this to themselves. And the guy that they let go is balling it out in Tampa Bay right now. I don't feel bad at all for the team. I feel bad for Stefanski, and I feel bad for those players because that's got to suck. The one thing I said after the game was my theory that I'm going to go with: the offensive line doesn't suck; they just hate Deshaun. It's kind of like Longest Yard when Adam Sandler comes back in, like he pulls himself out, and then he's got to come back in, and the offensive line just stands up. It's like, I'm going to let you get hit. It's kind of what I feel like is going on in Cleveland right now. On the flip side, in Philadelphia, already mentioned, they're kind of annoying, but them having A.J. Brown back this week was huge. That, like, Jalen Hurts, the running back joke is there, rightfully so, but when A.J. Brown is out there, he looks better. And I think that's most quarterbacks in general. When their number one is there, you'll have that. Like, I'm curious what Dak would look like if CD wasn't there. Like, I'm sure the numbers will be piss poor. Different style of quarterbacks. Dak's a better quarterback. I'm just trying to make a point. 20 points in this game, though. And the Browns have a decent defense, but I'm not sold on the Eagles right now. They will be a 9-18 team. I think. They might squeak into the playoffs. They might barely win the NFC East just because, like, maybe Jaden Daniels falls off and he hits that rookie wall at some point. The Cowboys look like they're folding it and calling it in. So they might make it in by virtue, but they'll be bounced. They're going to be one and done if they make the playoffs. If Sirianni isn't fired by then, because that's the other, like, he needs to go.
I think they probably will stack some wins. Like, their roster is still good.
They've got a good roster.
They shouldn't be playing this bad. So, what does that tell you?
Coaching.
The coaching is probably bad. And then I see, and I'm looking at Twitter after the game. I'm not really paying a whole lot of attention to this game because it kind of sucked. But then I see on the Twitter feed, I see Nick Sirianni, here he is again, yelling in the stands.
It's his own stands, too.
I send it, yeah. A little while later, I'm like, hold on a second. That was a home game. You're yelling at your own fans in your own stadium. And I saw, like, someone claim to be the fan that he was talking to. And it was about, like, the run game. He was yelling at he was yelling at Sirianni to run it more, which I think they do need to do. Saquon has been pretty good when he's touched the ball, and they don't give it to him enough. But anyways, I'm not trying to help the Eagles get better. But Sirianni's just a clown, man. Like, you know you're on thin ice. That's like one of the main reasons that people don't like you is you do all this dumb stuff. That's one of the reasons your players don't like you.
Yep.
And here you are doing it again in your own stadium. And then he brings his kids to the press conference after the game. Did you see that?
Yep.
Like
what a bitch.
That's
bitch
that's
move.
low. You're shielding yourself behind your kids because no one's going to grill you in front of your your children sitting on your lap.
That's a bitch move.
He is a character.
I didn't mind.
I just like him.
I didn't mind him originally. Those things I'm like, all right, that's okay. He kind of fit in with Philly, like he was, he had that East Coast.
It didn't seem genuine to me though. It seems so forced.
And like looking back,
almost,
I can definitely see that. But now, the people that did like Sirianni, like there was a lot of Eagles fans that seemed to be in on Sirianni because he seemed like one of them. Now, I don't see anybody sticking up for Sirianni anymore.
And he doesn't do anything either. He doesn't call the plays.
It's kind of like Saleh at the end, except Saleh wasn't a clown.
Yeah.
Speaking of clowns, Bo Nix loses 16-23 to the Chargers. I really got nothing.
I don't have much. Jim Harbaugh may have pooped his pants.
I think it was a heart thing. Why he changed his pants, I don't know.
He said he had a heart thing, but wearing different pants is suspect.
That's a little.
Chargers. I mean, they haven't really looked very good all year.
I don't know what to make of the Chargers.
I expect them to.
I don't know what to make of them.
They're not good. I mean, they're not.
Like they're
not bad.
They're a team that's going to sneak their way to 9 or 10 wins, I think. And like it's going to be, wait, you got there? You did that? Like they don't get talked about at all. They're kind of under the microscope. There's 3-2 right now, and then we've already mentioned they play the Cardinals. They host the Saints. They play in Cleveland. They host the Titans. They host the Bengals. They host the Ravens, Falcons. They play the Chiefs. They usually split with the Chiefs, I feel like. Buccaneers, Broncos, Patriots, Raiders. Like, there's a lot of winnable games for the Chargers there. Maybe they make a move. Maybe Mike Williams is reunited. Maybe that's where Mike Williams goes. Because I'm assuming he probably gets traded. That helps a little bit, I'd imagine. But the Chargers are just a team. They're going to sneak their way to being a wild card team. Or at least they'll be in the hunt graphic till the end.
Yeah. Their defense has been playing pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why they're able to stick in most games. Their offense is not good, but I didn't necessarily expect him to be. I mean, you got Quentin Johnson out there who has been better, but not good.
Really not saying much.
Vlad McConkey has been pretty good, but not like he's not transforming your offense or anything. Obviously, Herbert's good, but not a whole lot to work with, especially with a team who's focused on running. J.K. Dobbins has been good, which is good to see. Yep. But again, in today's NFL, that's not quite enough on its own. So they're going to be average. I thought the Broncos could get away with this one in the pick'ems. They were just barely the Chargers were barely favored. So I thought maybe the Broncos could come in. Chargers coming off the bye. I think they were on a bye the week before. Sometimes you come out a little sleepy. Broncos defense was playing good, although Pat Surtain got hurt at the very beginning of the game. But the Broncos offense just could not do anything for the first half.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to get the comeback. They were doing pretty well. I don't know if you watched any of the end of the game. I wouldn't blame you. I only watched it because I had, a bet riding on it. But they get a touchdown. They go for 2, which was smart. They didn't get it, so now they're down 10. They have the ball. They go down. They kick an early field goal with a minute left. It was like first down on the 20 or 30 or something like that. They kicked the field goal to save time because they needed 10 anyways. They kick an onside kick. It doesn't go 10 yards. Illegal formation on the Chargers. They kick it again, and it was close. The ball ended up. What they were trying to do is kick it and have it basically stop or get recovered on the sideline, on the left sideline. And it went 10 yards. It got to the sideline and went through a Chargers player's legs to get there. But the Chargers player, good play by him. Instead of going for the ball, he just shoved the dude that was going to recover it, kind of blocked him out of bounds. And by the time that guy was able to even recover, the ball was out of bounds. So, but it was if that block doesn't happen, or if it's not as good of a block, he was there, but he just couldn't recover and get his balance to make the recovery of the ball in time before it rolled out of bounds. So it was pretty close, as close as onside kicks can get. Obviously, they're low percentage play. Getting two chances, I was oh man, they're going to do it, but they did not.
They did not indeed. And
that's on me for having faith in the Broncos.
Is there anything we got to mention on the Falcons-Panthers? Falcons suck. Panthers suck. 38-20. My favorite part of this game was Mark Sanchez saying, Bryce Young has got to sit behind a veteran quarterback and learn from a smart guy. And as soon as he says that, Andy Dalton throws a pick. Couldn't have asked for better timing.
I think it was a pick six, too.
I think it was.
About a pick six.
Mark Sanchez, if there's one thing...
No, I think he got tackled short.
There's one thing Sanchez was good at. It was timing. When to run into the ass of your own player. Actually, I got a lot of love for Mark Sanchez, but, got to throw some shade.
I do have one thing to say. I just got to find it here.
Falcons 38-20, as you're looking for that. Yep. Tyler Algier continues to be the running back. He continues to be the bell cow. Bijan got 15 carries and 95 yards. So maybe not. You can probably tell.
He did pretty well, but again, terrible defense.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot you can take away from.
This is for Dylan. This is for Dylan specifically. Yeah. Drake London is wide receiver 5 in PPR. So I don't want to hear none of that Drake London slander that was going on about, you didn't believe in him. He never finished higher than wide receiver 20 or something like that. Well, he's wide receiver 5 right now, so take that.
Suck it, Dylan.
That's my boy.
All right, moving on to Dylan's game, the Steelers-Raiders. 32-13. Steelers get the big win, and yet they're probably still going to make a change at quarterback. No sense. Justin Fields has been what you want him to be. They are 4-2. They are winning. He's on pace for 3,000 yards, or 3,000 plus.
4,000.
4,000. What was it? 30 touchdowns. The pace. It's a really good pace.
He's on a good pace. Yeah.
Dylan sent it at some point. It might take a minute to find that. With everything that's been sent today. And the Raiders got a lot of problems, too. The Raiders are not a good team. Brock Bowers, we're brocked up. 9 catches, 71 yards. That's really the only good thing that the Raiders got going for them, especially after making the trade for Devontae Adams, or trading him away to the Jets. That happened this morning. Actually, it sounded like it really happened last night, just became official this morning. Najee got going for the first time. He actually looked like a legitimate running back this week. George Pickens continues to be a bump.
Says more about the Raiders' defense, to be fair.
This is true. If your defense makes Najee look good, then you've got a terrible defense.
Yes. Of course, it happens the week I finally decided to put him on the bench. Should have seen that coming, to be fair, but...
That's going to happen with George Pickens, The second you put George Pickens on the bench, that's when he's going to ball out. And then you're going to put him back in the lineup, and he's just never going to have that type of game again.
Yeah. That's why fantasy is so annoying. But
very much so.
I keep playing every year.
All right. Is there anything you got to add? I think Dylan's going to do a video on the Steelers quarterback situation. He's doing that tomorrow. So stay tuned to the feed for that at Party Chat Sports. But I don't have anything else to say on the Steelers-Raiders game. It's going to be interesting to see what they do at quarterback, though, for the Steelers. Drew? 47-9. That was...
Yeah.
I don't know what was more disgusting, that score or hearing Aiden Hutchinson's knee snap on live TV.
There was a lot of things disgusting about the game. Just bad all around. I never thought we were going to win. In the pick'ems, I picked the Lions, and the bet I had placed over the weekend, I picked the Lions.
You placed a bet?
I did.
And you didn't do a video on said bet?
Yeah.
Fraud.
It was a last minute decision. Because I was feeling good about my pick'ems. I was like, dude, there's no way that the Broncos don't win, and the Colts, because the Colts were also underdogs. Anyways, I knew the Lions were going to win, but I at least thought it would be competitive to a certain extent. It was anything but. Just from the get-go, I mean, not a single player played well. Not a single one. Except for Brandon Aubrey. But he doesn't count. He's the GOAT. So, one single player played well. Actually, I take that back. Kevontae Turpin was pretty good, too. He had a good return.
CD had 7 catches.
But we'll talk about CD here in a second.
Okay.
2 players played well. The problem with CD, his stats were decent. He's not playing to his best ability. He quits early. He doesn't.
Diva.
Him and Dak are miscommunicating somehow. I don't know whose fault it is, but it needs to not happen. On the interception of Brian Branch, where he kind of baits Dak in the corner of the end zone, CD could have also gone up for it. He was in position that if he attacked the ball, he could have at least tried to catch it or knock it away. But he just kept on running and ran out of the end zone and ran off the field. So that's an easy pick. Obviously not. That was a terrible throw by Dak. Good play by Branch. Bad effort by CD. Multiple things true on the same play. Again, CD runs like a little go route, and Dak is throwing an out route to the sticks, and it looks terrible because Dak is throwing to no man's land because CD's just running down the field. That's not supposed to happen with your star player. Another one, Dak throws it kind of like a jump ball, except for it wasn't like a 50-50. CD had the advantage, which, by the way, he told Dak to throw jump balls on the sideline last game, and he doesn't catch it. He doesn't even get his hands on it, and it was easily catchable. I mean, it went between his hands, I think. He just didn't get his hands up in time. He had opportunities. He has chances. He's the second highest paid wide receiver in the league for good reason. I'm not saying he's bad by any means. He's still good. Early in the game, he had a good one-handed catch and good run after the catch. He's still a fantastic wide receiver. But for some reason, on certain plays, especially if he doesn't think he's getting the ball or whatever, or if he has a bad play, it gets in his head, and he doesn't compete, and he doesn't give his best effort all the time, every play. And so that should have been a touchdown for him in a game where obviously we needed touchdowns. We didn't score any. Just a lot of bad things. Again, Dak did not play well at all. Dumb mistakes. That first one to Branch, I think he threw 2 to Branch at least. I think maybe 3 total. I think 2 went to Branch, something like that. Interceptions.
2 total.
So just not a good game. The second one, though, I will say, is Jerry's fault. That stupid sun coming in through the windows. We'll talk about Jerry here in a second. Just so dumb. But threw it right to Branch. He's been forcing a lot of things, which he's been known to do when things aren't going well.
He
tries to force it.
My quote for life.
Make the play.
My quote for life is forcing anything in life. It's like farting. If you have to force it, it's shit. So don't force anything.
That's a good one. But yeah, he's been forcing a lot, and it's not been working. So he needs to chill out. take what's given to you and live to fight another day.
Like, he looked good last year. Why does he look lost this year?
The offensive line is worse. The wide receivers are worse, kind of.
It's a lot of the same guys.
And you're really just missing Brandon Cooks. But there was a weird kind of shift last year after the bye week where the offense started to click and things were working. We had a better run game then as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't great, but it was better than what we have now,
Right.
which is abysmal. So there was a lot of pieces to the offense that were meshing better. And Dak and CD were on the same page for the whole season until the Packers game for some reason. And so they just kind of like carried that over. Really, the whole team has still, they're like, it's like they never left the Packers game. Every home game we play, starting from that game, is just an absolute blowout. Like, I don't know. But there's a lot of pieces on the team that aren't playing with. The offensive line, terrible. Zach Martin with a 0 pass block grade. That is a sad day.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed too, I noticed this early in the season against the Browns, I think it was.
That'd be game 1.
No, not this about Zach Martin yet, but Dak got sacked, and it was the offensive line's fault. Like, obviously not every sack is offensive line's fault.
Right.
But some of them are. Like, they just can't slow anyone down. And at the beginning of the season, it happened with Guyton. And Guyton had, barely touched his guy, and he gets a sack. And he goes to help Dak up, and Dak did not accept the help. He just got up on his own. Well, he did that to Zach Martin as well. Zach Martin got beat in, instantly beat, which is bad for Zach Martin, obviously. And Zach Martin comes back there and is trying to help him up, and Dak just gets up on his own and doesn't take it. I don't love that. Dak is very competitive. I know I don't know what other people think about Dak necessarily in his competitive level. I think he comes off a little bit softer, and because he's a nice guy and the post game interviews and everything like that. But on the field, he's very competitive. And when you're competitive like that, it makes you angry when things aren't going your way. But when Zach Martin's doing bad, there's a lot of things going wrong.
Yep.
Our center is a rookie who's never played center before, so there's growing pains there. Tyler Smith is now playing left tackle because our left tackle got hurt and is also a raw rookie who wasn't playing very well either. Our left guard is a backup who, again, is a backup for a reason. Our right tackle has never really recovered from his ACL injury and gets just freaking beat up by any decent pass rusher with a pulse. What else? Tolbert's decent. The problem with Tolbert is he doesn't get separation, which is a problem with most of the Cowboys wide receivers. And that's why Dak is having to force these things, because there's not really anyone to throw it to. I mean, Tom Brady said it during the game. He hasn't seen a single wide open receiver the whole game. I forget at what point he had said that, but if Tom Brady's saying it,
yeah,
I'll go ahead and believe it, because he wouldn't be. He's not. It's not like he's loyal to the Cowboys or Dak or anything like that. Like, he doesn't care. If Dak was making mistakes and missing wide open guys, he would say it. But it's been a problem. Zero separation in the play calling doesn't do it. There's things you can do to get your guys open, whether it's those little pick plays, things like that, certain route combinations. We had receivers freaking running into each other in the field because they're somehow ending up in the same spot on their routes. Like, there's so much going wrong. I think it was I don't think it was Ferg. It might have been Schoonmaker and Tolbert. Maybe they literally collided, and it was almost a pick because the tight end, who I think it might have been Schoonmaker, maybe it was Ferg. I'm guessing he runs the wrong route, or at least gets his timing off, and he pulls the linebacker up to where Tolbert is coming across on, I don't remember what kind of route it was, either an in or some kind of like slant or whatever. And it's almost a pick because the linebacker is not supposed to be there. He's supposed to be with the tight end, but the tight end decides he wants to come up and be in the same spot. They run into each other. The ball hits, I think it was Anzalone or something in the hands or in the chest. Luckily, he drops it, but there's just so many things going wrong. On the defense side of the ball, we basically got practice squad team out there. I mean, we got like preseason game 3 roster out there. I mean, it is bad. We don't have our top 4 edge rushers. Our defensive tackles technically are the starters, but our defensive tackles are already bad to begin with. They've been bad for years. That's been one of the main problems plaguing the Cowboys. The linebackers, our starting linebacker and the one that calls the plays, Kendricks, he's injured. His backup was even a little bit injured, so he didn't play as much as he probably would have. So we had essentially 2 rookies at linebacker, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's like Hawaiian or something. It's like Leafu or Leafau, something like that. We drafted him, I think, in the 5th round this year, maybe the 6th round. And then Overshone, who, again, this is basically his rookie year because he got hurt in the preseason last year, was playing linebacker. Damone Clark had to play linebacker, who's been kind of like a rotational piece for us. Trayvon Diggs was terrible. Most of his like terribleness came from having to defend Jameson Williams, which I don't expect him to win a foot race against him. But his effort on tackling and things like that is just so bad. And I don't know if it's because he's coming off the ACL and he's not confident yet or what it may be, but just not great effort. And that's bad when our other corner is literally a practice squad guy. We called him up from the practice squad. He's like originally he was corner number 5, but Booth from the Vikings ended up being even worse. So now he's technically corner 4. Just not in the safeties again. They're aging. An aging Malik Hooker, who was good last year but hasn't been very good this year. Donovan Wilson, who his main thing was like flying in and making big hits, and he hasn't been able to tackle, and he's constantly running himself out of position. Like, just the entire team has been bad. And the worst part of it is the guy whose birthday it was sitting in the box knew there were issues and did nothing to correct it. And this is not just a this year problem. This is a consistent issue. That's the reason we haven't been able to go anywhere. And a lot of people want to say, well, it's Dak. They shouldn't have gave him $60 million. It's CD. They shouldn't have gave him 34.5 or whatever it was. It's this, it's that, it's whatever. The players are not playing good. I'll give you that. The Cowboys haven't won anything in 30 years. Dak has not been a $60 million quarterback for 30 years. He's been here 8 years, I think. There's one guy that's been a common denominator for 30 years. It's not Dak. It's not Tony Romo. It's not Jason Garrett. It's not Mike McCarthy. It's Jerry Jones. And so he can sit up in his box and he can tell you that he's the only one that can do that GM job. The buck stops with me. He's the one that's making all these decisions and doing all these things. And what do you have to show for it? You're the oldest GM in the league by far. He's just turned 82 on Sunday. They were talking about this on the radio. The next oldest GM is Balky in Jacksonville, who's 60. He is, like I said before, gone 30 years with no success. There's not a single person, whether it be coach or GM, that would still have a job after 5-7 years of no success. Like, you can't do the job. If you can't do it after 30 years, you're never going to figure it out. Like, it's. And then he comes on the radio this morning, and this is where it starts to get real sad, because the hope is like maybe he'll see one day, maybe he'll figure it out, maybe he will listen. You come on the radio, and the radio guys are asking you on, I think it's 105.3 or 105.7 in Dallas. It's like the main Dallas sports talk radio. I think it might even broadcast out of like the Star in Frisco, Texas, which is where like the Cowboys headquarters is. Anyways, they're asking him like, dude, why didn't you do anything? Like, this was obvious. Like, why didn't you make moves? And Jerry's blowing a gasket, and he's saying all this stuff about, he should replace them for asking these types of questions, and they don't have any right to ask them these questions. They don't know what they're talking about, and then literally threatens to replace these guys. And they kind of laugh it off because they talk to Jerry every week, like he's gotten angry before and whatever. So they laugh at it, and he's like, no, I'm serious. Like, he doubled down. He's dead serious. He will replace these guys because they're asking him questions that he doesn't want to answer. Like, it's so bad. And it's miserable. There's another part of that came up after the NFL owners meeting today. And he said he was really mad because these were radio guys. They're not fans. They're not real football guys. So today he says, after the meeting, the wrong ones were doing the questioning. Now, if those had been real fans sitting there, or if there had been people that knew what they were talking about, football people, I might have had a different answer. That's just so disrespectful, and shows you what kind of man he is and what kind of opinion he thinks of himself. That these poor radio hosts, sports radio, mind you, I think they know a little bit of what they're talking about. I don't agree with everything that the people from this specific stations say, but that doesn't mean that they don't watch the games and know how modern football works and all this kind of stuff. To say that they don't know what they're talking about because they're radio hosts, they're not real football guys.
How they get into that in the first place?
Yeah. So a little bit of personal offense there, Jerry. I might not have the privilege of being paid to watch every game and make important decisions about a real football team and things like that, but I think I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. And it's easy to see because Jerry thinks we're still in like 1990 or something. They come out weekly and say that we can't afford Derrick Henry. We can't afford this and that. He said multiple times in that same interview about Dak getting $60 million because he wants that to be a scapegoat about why they couldn't do anything. We've got over $20 million in cap space right now just sitting unused. We've got money. There's graphs that show you active cash spending by NFL teams in the league. The Cowboys are always at the bottom. We're currently at the bottom in active cash spending. But yet him and Stephen Jones and the rest of his mouthpieces come out each week and say, our hands are tied. We couldn't do anything because we're giving Dak $60 million and we're giving CD $34 and we've got Micah coming up and this and that and whatever. And a lot of the Cowboys fans who are the reason that Jerry doesn't change because they give him money every week and they buy into everything he's saying and all this and that, whatever. They believe him. But the rest of us who care about the sport, about the team, and do research and want to see the team succeed, you're just lying straight to our faces. Because we can see, you're not high. This isn't private information. We can see the state of the football team. You can't fool us. And so when people are asking you tough questions, it's because they care and they want to see something done about it. And just because you don't get a question that you want to answer and can answer easily, you're going to threaten to fire these guys. By the way, they don't even work for you. They're not Dallas Cowboys employees. Although he probably has enough power that he could get him fired if he really wanted to. But they literally don't even work for the Cowboys. And to come on and just disrespect them like that. Jerry's done a lot of bad things. He's said a lot of bad things, but man, that was tough. And he doubled down on it during this call when he said he's not joking to their face. And then he doubles down after the NFL owners meeting. If you didn't already think he's a clown, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. He's the biggest joke in the league. And as long as he can keep the frickin' AT&T Stadium posted a picture to celebrate the number of fans in the stadium. It was like 93,000. They blurred out the score on the frickin' Jumbotron in the middle of the field. That is embarrassing. And Jerry doesn't care because that number of attendance was in the 90,000s. And people are in the pro shop buying jerseys, and people are tuning in the game. I bet it's one of the most watched games of the week. He will never care. He will never care about what the product is on the field as long as people are buying, people are watching.
I mean, they are one of the most, if not the most profitable franchise in the NFL.
They're the most valuable sports team in the world.
Is it sports?
Out of anyone.
I wasn't sure if there was a soccer team that was more valuable.
No, they're the most valuable sports team in the world.
Which is why he doesn't care.
And that's what Jerry cares about. I'll give him props. He's good at that. He's good at business. He has no reason, he has no qualifications to be running and building a football team in a like a day-to-day roster building situation. He shouldn't be taking post-game interviews.
No one else does that.
The owner is not doing post-game interviews.
No other owner does that.
It's so ridiculous.
You don't hear...
And we're seeing... Yeah.
Everybody knows who Jerry Jones is. Most people... I really don't know who owns the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Vikings, I mean, who owns a lot of these teams? Frankly, I don't care. Jerry Jones
is a household name, just about. I mean,
there's
not a single NFL fan that doesn't know Jerry Jones.
If you start naming teams, all right, so like Chiefs, first person that comes to your head, Patrick Mahomes. 49ers, could be an array of players, could be like Joe Montana, could be a Hall of Famer. Like one of the first people that comes to your head when you think of the Dallas Cowboys could be Dak, but a lot of times it's probably Jerry Jones. And he's never really had the... He
wouldn't have it any other way.
No,
that's exactly what he wants.
Egotistical asshole. And he's always...
And the thing is I think I said this before. He wants to be credited. If the Cowboys were to figure it out and win the Super Bowl, he wants people to know that he built the team. He is responsible for it.
But when they don't,
now he's responsible for putting a shit product on the field. And people are asking him, "Hey, aren't you responsible for this? Why didn't you do anything?" And now all of a sudden, it's not his problem; it's other people's faults. And why are you asking me this? Just a joke.
And if your complaint is the money, the Chiefs, when they paid Patrick Mahomes, that was the most expensive contract for a quarterback at the time. The salary cap was a little bit smaller. You paid Travis Kelce. You paid Chris Jones. I'm pretty sure Tyreek was getting paid, too. It wasn't... I mean, he wanted more. That's why he wanted to get moved. Yeah. But, the good teams know how to do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to go in a little bit more. The Chiefs, for example, they're paying Patrick Mahomes. Now, albeit now that contract isn't as bad, but at the time, it was a huge contract. It was something that had never been done before. But again, even not just strictly the dollars, but they're constantly making moves to get better.
Yep.
They trade up for a wide receiver in this draft. They go and get Hollywood Brown. They've done multiple things to get better. The Bills, they just got Amari Cooper today.
Yep. They're 4-2.
Who else?
They're 4-2, first place in the
49ers. The 49ers, they had lost the Super Bowl. They go out and get CMC. They're paying ton of good players, a ton of money to be on that team. The Lions, they're bringing in free agents. They're attacking the draft. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff. They gave Goff a good contract. They gave Sewell a good contract. Amon-Ra's getting good money. All these, they just extended David Montgomery. They literally just gave their defensive tackle who whooped Zach Martin all game a 4-year extension, probably just from that game.
They rebuilt their defensive secondary.
The contenders, yeah, exactly. That was their weakness, and they attacked it.
Yep.
They added multiple pieces to try and correct it. It's one thing if you make moves and they don't work out. Like, if the Lions don't win at all, you can't say that they didn't try. They tried.
That's the one thing I'm going to say about the Jets.
That's all you can give them.
When the Jets made the move for Aaron Rodgers, it was with the hope that it was going to lead to a Super Bowl. If they don't make it to the Super Bowl, I'm not going to walk away pissed off that they made the move because you were proactive. You made a move with the intent on trying to win. Like, that's the move you make. You see what you
even right now.
Right.
For the Jets, it's not like going to plan, but you're still trying. You just trained for Devontae. Like, you're trying.
The Cowboys
there was
don't try.
zero attempt to get better.
Nope.
You drafted some players who were risky draft picks in the first place. You needed them to start right away. You lied to your fans saying you can't bring in Derrick Henry when you easily could have. All this different stuff. You do nothing. To get better.
Nothing.
So you get zero respect and you get all the blame for this team collapsing when everyone and their grandma knew the problems with this team from last season. Everyone knew what was wrong with the Cowboys. Everyone knew things needed to change, pieces needed to be added, and they still did nothing. And now it's our fault for pointing them out and talking about it. Like an example I was thinking of earlier is the Diamondbacks. And I don't know if you follow baseball at all, if you're listening to this, but the Diamondbacks, they went to the World Series last year. In case you didn't notice, they lost, but they still went. Not a people aren't expecting them to make the World Series, but they made it. And they're technically a small market team. There's not a lot of money being pumped, and baseball's a little different because there's not a salary cap, so it's up to like the owner and the team to fork up the cash. And they saw their team go to the World Series, and they said, "Hey, let's make some moves and see if we can do that again." They go out and get. We really need more pitchers. They go out and get a pitcher. They get in another pitcher who had both had good seasons last year. So they bring in more than we need. They go get a third baseman that we really needed. They go get all these guys. And yet they win more games in the regular season than they won last year, and they miss the playoffs. But there's not a single fan that blames the owner or the management for missing the playoffs.
They were proactive.
Because they tried. They did everything that you were supposed to do to get better, and it just didn't work out. And that's the way sports goes. But that's not the case with the Cowboys. They're not actively trying to get better, and they haven't been for a long time.
You can't say you're all in and then not make a single outside free agent acquisition until Anthony Barr a month later after free agency started.
Eric Hendricks.
I knew it was one of those former Vikings linebackers. That was the move. Yeah. Oh, we're all in.
All in, baby. Got one linebacker past his prime.
Yeah, the Cowboys, ESPN puts them on a lot just because they generate ratings. But people are just starting to get fed up with them because they have been, in a sense, pushed down everybody's throats. Because, you have Jerry Jones who's constantly talking them up, and they're good talking points. But nothing changes. It is an insanity expecting things to change because they just haven't.
Yeah. Our best chance is we just get lucky. Just straight up, just get lucky. Like, we're never going to be the best team as far as our roster goes. A lot of times we've got a really good one side of the ball or, a couple good pieces here and there, but we're never going to be the most complete team because we never compete in free agency. We rarely make trades. And it's never going to be what it needs to be.
It's kind of like the Steelers, except the Steelers owner isn't vocal and they have won some something
Yeah,
in our lifetime. It's kind of
exactly.
like that. But you'd rather be
And Jerry's Super Bowls were from Jimmy Johnson.
Yep.
He fired Jimmy Johnson because he's a freaking egotistical maniac.
And that's one thing I was thinking of
The
earlier.
second Super Bowl after that, they won, but it was the same roster that had won before, and no one there was not a scrap of success after that.
And you were saying how Jerry's been the GM for like 30 years and isn't qualified. He wasn't qualified then. When he when he gave himself the role, when he fired Tom Landry, which that worked out. At the time, he wasn't qualified then.
That was okay. It was time.
It was time.
But Jimmy Johnson, he was mad Jimmy Johnson was getting credit for the Super Bowl and the team that was put together. He wanted people to see this is Jerry Jones's team. Jerry Jones did this. Jerry Jones did that. And technically, he got one without Jimmy Johnson. But no one says Jerry Jones did that.
No.
That was the same roster that Jimmy Johnson put together. There's a reason that it took this long. Jimmy Johnson just got put into the Ring of Honor last year. There's a reason he didn't put him in for so long. The fans had been begging and begging and begging and asking for multiple years to put him in because there's no reason he shouldn't have been. That's why Jason Garrett was employed for 10 years. Because he was a perfect yes man freaking puppet for Jerry Jones to say if they were to win it, it would be easily seen as Jerry Jones's Super Bowl, not Jason Garrett. And so it's unfortunately, man, it's just never going to change as long as he's around. And unfortunately, it's not going to change when Stephen Jones is around. I mean, those two are together every day.
Yep.
When Stephen Jones gets on, he luckily he's not on the air disrespecting people, but he's talking the same talking points about we don't have money for this and that, whatever. Like it's never going to change, unfortunately.
One final thought before we move on. You got a lot out there.
I hate you, Jerry Jones.
You got a lot.
I hate you.
I think I'm going to clip that entire segment and make it its own video.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's nothing.
I'm sure to tag Jerry Jones. I want him to hear.
I do want to add.
Let's get on a conversation.
I do want to add. That the Lions.
He was dude. I'm gonna say a couple more things. Hold on.
Holy shit.
that radio thing really made me mad, dude.
It makes me mad too.
So he comes on. He's acting like these guys are idiots.
It makes me mad because that was my I studied that. That was my broadcasting is my background, and disrespecting the entire profession like that just irks me.
Yeah, like there's some dumb idiots who they don't get to know about football because they don't work for the team.
You get into that because you're a fan.
He continuously asks like, "What's the point? Like, who are you to ask me this? Like, what do you know about any of this?" Like, Jerry, let's get on a call, dude. Let's get on the call. We can talk. And I'll ask you the same questions. And he baited people into and he asked if I forget exactly how it went, but basically he was trying to get people to call him an idiot. He was like, "What do you think? I'm an idiot?" Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's what we're saying, Jerry. You're dumb. You do not know how to run a football team, and there's 30 years of evidence. I don't know what else you need, dude. Give it up. You're 82 years old. Spend some time with the family.
Go on your yacht.
Enjoy some success for once in your life. Football success, I suppose, but today really bugged me. Really bugged me.
I'm going to say this about the Lions, and then we're going to move on.
Go ahead. The Lions did get.
Lions
they deserve their flowers.
They deserve their flowers.
Although all that offensive tackle and offensive lineman cornball stuff,
I loved it.
It still didn't work. And we still won last year. So
I love that pettiness.
That's all I gotta say about that.
I love that pettiness. I'm not going to lie. I respect it.
They whooped our butts and we deserved it, but they still couldn't score with offensive linemen. So.
Yeah, the Lions are going to be a tough team to beat. I think they are the class of the NFC right now. I really don't know what that says about the rest of the conference, but I think the Lions are the team to beat in the NFC until proven otherwise. I know the Vikings are
See
undefeated.
now with no Hutchinson.
No Hutch is going to make a huge difference. I expect them to make some sort of move, though, because they do have this team where you look at the rest of the NFC, this might be your window. This might be your Super Bowl window. So I expect them to make a move, maybe a Hassan Reddick type move. I expect them to do something, though. The Hutch injury, that just sucks. Like that, first of all, it hurt my eyes to watch. I'm not usually, I can tolerate watching injuries and stuff like that. Like most of the boys, I had no issues with the first 5 minutes of that show. There's only one thing that bothered me in that entire show that was like, oh, actually take that back. Two things. I was like, nope, can't watch it. A lot of injuries I can tolerate, I can watch. The Hutch one, just because of the way the leg was wrapped around, it's like, no. Ugh. And then I didn't realize it because I didn't watch it live, but I went back to watch like a live clip, like as it was happening, and the fact that you could hear it on the broadcast, just So I hope he gets back soon. That's an injury though. That's like, who is he going to be after he comes back from that?
Yeah,
That's my.
I will say, I feel bad. Don't want anyone to get hurt. But if he would have kept his feet on the ground and not been doing his terrible tackling technique, which is very dangerous, he probably doesn't get injured.
I will say it's pretty badass that he got hurt and still got the sack. Like that's a badass way to go out. Still getting the sack.
Because his sack is just wrap up on the back and hip drop.
But
And that's why his legs were up in there swinging around getting snapped. But anyways,
Lions, tough team to beat. They're going to be a tough team. They're going to lose a couple games just because it's the NFL, but I'm not saying they're making it to the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure I took them to make it to the Super Bowl.
I did too.
I could see it. I can still see it. Neither of these two teams are making it to the Super Bowl. The Bengals and the Giants. Not much to say. I fell asleep during this game. Truth be told, because there wasn't much to watch. The Bengals should have taken care of business. It should not have been this close. I think this game said more about the Bengals and the state of where they're at than it did the Giants. The Giants were bad. Everybody knew that they were going to be bad heading in this year. The Bengals are the shock. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this game. Like that's probably the last thing I'm going to say, other than I'm just shocked with how bad the Bengals have been, and they're in trouble.
They just play down to their opponent's level.
Yeah.
Like they went toe to toe, blow for blow, trade haymakers with the Ravens the week before, and now you're barely beating the Giants.
Yep.
Like it doesn't make any sense.
Yep. All right. Last game, also a primetime game in New York. The Jets had a chance to take first place over in the AFC East. They failed to do so, losing 23-20 at home. Wore some throwbacks, which is weird for me to say because those are the uniforms I pretty much watched them wear growing up. A couple different adjustments that was more like Super Bowl III era. I'm not going to get into the specifics there, but lose that one. The game should have been a lot better than it was. Like it had the makings of a good game, but the officiating was terrible on both sides. It felt like every play there was a flag. A lot of it was nonsense or ticky-tacky, which just felt like the refs were trying to make it about themselves. And I'm not trying to say that the Jets lost because of the refs, because it was not one-sided that the officiating is on. And I hate calling out refs because they're human. It happens. But when it was as egregious as it was last night, it's got to be talked about. It's got to be mentioned. The pass or the roughing the passer that was called on Aaron Rodgers, that was soft. Every time a player every time a ball is thrown in the direction of the Jets secondary, they get DPI. Fair or not? Some are legit. Some are you're really going to call that? The Tyron Smith holding on the Breece Hall touchdown, that wasn't a touchdown because of the holding. just the amount of penalties made this game gross when it could have been really good. It could have been like a 35-31 type game. It had the makings of that. The Jets' offense looked better. They only put up 20 points. I thought they looked better until they got to the red zone. They struggled to score touchdowns, and that's just been a theme for the Jets. They struggle to score touchdowns. They struggle to get turnovers. And if you're going to be in these close games, you've got to get turnovers and you've got to score touchdowns, and they've just failed to do so. They need presence on the edge. They need to get after the quarterback. Will McDonald cannot be your only pass rusher, which is why the loss of Jermaine Johnson hurts, because he was also good in the run game. The Jets' run defense has been suspect. The offensive line has been meh. The chemistry, you can tell, is still not there with some of those wide receivers, which is why they made the trade for Devontae Adams. But like I said last week, that's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. It makes it look better on the surface. And like Alton Lazard looked better this week. I think he took my advice, actually. He invested in some insurance. Wasn't quite Geico, but everything that came his way ended up in good hands. He was able to catch a lot of the things that were passed to him.
That's Allstate.
It is.
You're in good hands.
So I do owe him an apology there. Like the one, not even the Hail Mary. The Hail Mary was crazy. But the one where the window was that big. No idea how he fit that in there, but because of Rodgers' chemistry and relationship with Lazard, it worked. So that's where Devontae Adams comes in. Like, the last two games have ended on passes where Mike Williams is on the ground and it gets intercepted. Those last two games, I don't think those passes are intercepted if they're thrown to Devontae Adams. Could be wrong, but that's like where Adams helps. But there's still a problem with this team. They don't know how to win. Never figured it out. That's what Aaron Rodgers was brought here to do. He has had 3 straight games where they've had a chance to go down the field and win it. The Broncos, 2-minute drill, didn't score. Vikings, 2-minute drill, interception. Last night against the Bills, 2-minute drill, interception. Like, Rodgers came in supposed to be the guy that's like, in these close games, he can help them win. And they haven't yet. You can say the Titans game, but in all reality, the reason the Jets won that game is because Will Levis is brain dead. Like, that's not on the Jets. That's on what I feel looking back, the Titans lost that game more than the Jets won it. And you're staring down the barrel at 2-4 right now because of that. You got to make your kicks. And Greg Zuerlein has been suspect since August. He wasn't even the best kicker for the Jets during training camp, but the company line was he's going to get better. He's going to be fine. The preseason, he didn't look that good, and that's carried over now. And when kickers go bad, it's like milk. Once they spoil, it's done. You're cooked. There's no point in drinking it anymore. The Jets need to make a change at kicker at some point because it's now cost them a couple games. They should have beat the Broncos for multiple reasons, but he missed a kick. In a game where you lost by 3, granted, the Bills left 4 points on the board, but the Jets left 6. And actually, they left a lot more. Like, Breece Hall, the NFL Twitter posted his highlight of his 40-yard run. That should have been a touchdown. If he doesn't try making the extra move, if he just keeps going straight, that should be 6. Instead, the Jets get 0 because they aren't able to punch it in and the kick's missed. So it's tough, man. You're 2-4. Your next couple games are the Steelers on Sunday Night Football in Pittsburgh. Then you've got the Patriots. And then you've got the Texans in prime time. You've got to win at least 2 of those games to get yourself to 4 wins. You've got to start no worse than 4-5 right now. If you don't win any of those, or if you only beat the Patriots, season's over. And I think the Jets' season is getting really close to being over, which is a common theme over by Halloween. Halloween's approaching. Spooky season's almost here for the Jets. Scary times. And the people that are saying that the Davante Adams trade was a panic move, on the surface, it looks like it, just because of the timing. But he was already in the building this morning. He flew in last night. It sounds like that trade was made during the game. That was going to happen. I think everybody knew it was going to happen. It's just a matter of what the compensation was going to be. That helps. Like I already said, I think it makes Garrett Wilson better. I mean, hell, Allen Lazard and Garrett Wilson both had 100 yards receiving last night. Breece Hall had 100 yards on the ground. And the fact that they were only able to score 20 points is gross. Like that's usually a 30-point outing when you have those type of numbers. But Davante Adams does help. The biggest question mark becomes where Mike Williams fits. I don't think he does. I think he's out.
Does not fit.
I think he's out. I think you're looking at a trio of Davante Adams, Allen Lazard, and Garrett Wilson, which I'm fine with. Other people's got to start getting involved on offense too. I think that's the other, Mike Williams isn't being involved at all. The tight end position really isn't contributing much to the passing game. Breece Hall gets a couple. But you need more from the wide receiver position than just Lazard and Wilson. For his first game as a head coach, I thought Jeff Hallbrook did fine. There was some clock management that I'm like, all right, I like this a little bit more than what Saleh had done. We'll see what they do moving forward. I was impressed with the flow of the offensive game. Like the game plan on offense looked better. The movement, the play calling, the decision making looked better than when Nathaniel Hackett was calling plays. So that's room for encouragement. I made the joke of watching the Jets offense was like when man found fire or discovered fire, because I've never seen this before, an actual legit offense in the NFL. And Dylan called me out that after I made that comment, the Jets offense didn't do jack squat. I think they had 39 yards after that. So that's on me, truthfully. But I really don't think I'm missing anything. I feel like I hit a lot of the main bullet points from the Jets. It's just disappointing. It's disappointing. But there's a reason. The Jets have the talent, but they're old. And it's a lot of Madden talent right now. It's not translating to on the field. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Joe Douglas needs to start taking some heat. His first round pick is not starting, which would be okay if his big giant acquisition at left tackle wasn't playing poorly. R.I.P. Tyron Smith. His third round pick.
Sad to see.
His third round pick, Malachi Corley, who the Jets were claiming, we had a first round grade on him. We got a steal. That's a yak king. The Jets could use some yak right now, and he's been inactive the last 2 games. This very talented roster that Joe Douglas has built only has 2 wins. That's just the facts right now. So I expect other moves to come. If it be trading away Hassan Reddick, if it just be bringing him back into the building at this point, as much as I hate the idea of a player saying, I don't want to play for you, coming in to play for us, we need him. Truth be told, we need the edge rusher. I think Mike Williams goes. I'd like to see a player for player swap, like a Jadeveon Clowney type player for Mike Williams. I think that'd be fair. He fits the need just because he's better in the run game, and we need help there. But I expect more moves to come for the Jets, and we'll see what Sunday Night Football brings. Just disappointing. Just disappointing being at 10-4. For the Bills, they didn't play their best game by any means. And that's the other thing that sucks for the Jets. They've played all these winnable games, and they only have 2 wins this season. For the Bills, when you have Josh Allen, though, you put yourself in a spot to win it. Like that, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. And they just improved their roster.
They need Amari Cooper.
They did need Amari Cooper. They found that out last night.
Their waters, they tried the 0 wide receiver strat. You know, they added Keon Coleman, obviously, but he hasn't really looked that great so far. So the one thing I know about Amari Cooper, though, is he doesn't like playing outside and he doesn't like playing in the cold. So I'm not sure how well that's going to work for him. But to my earlier point, they're trying.
Yep. At the very least, they're
Trying to get better. They traded more for an older, I believe more expensive Amari Cooper than what the Cowboys traded him away for at like the height of his prime.
Yep.
On a better deal.
Yep.
Jerry, you don't know what you're doing, man. There's so much evidence. So stupid.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
All right. I think that's a good place to end it here for week 6 of the NFL season. We started off with Cam. I have no idea where you went. Kind of went AWOL on us. He was supposed to talk about his Vikings trade. Really, I didn't think it was a huge trade, but he still wanted to talk about it. So
for Cam Akers, who was running back 3 on the Texans.
Yeah. I was still going to give him the platform, though, because I am a good guy. I'm a nice fella, regardless of what you guys might say. But we're going to wrap it up here for week 6 of the NFL season. Make sure you check us out at Party Chat Sports on TikTok. We got a couple good TikToks up there. Not to toot our own horns or anything, but I think there's some good ones there, so go check those out. Dylan's going to have, hopefully, a Steelers quarterback video on the feed tomorrow, or the day after this gets posted. That's going to be on YouTube at Party Chat Sports. You can keep up to date with everything we're doing at Party Chat Sports on our Twitter. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitter, and also wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, hope everyone has a great week 6. And unless you're the Steelers, hope your guys' team wins this next week.
Fire Jerry Jones.